everyone. Today in class, we're going to be talking about literary devices for the telltale heart and which ones you need to know for your assignment tomorrow. Let's get started. The first one I want to talk about is alliteration. So this should be a review. It's the repetition of the same letter or sound at the beginning of adjacent or closely connected words. So anytime you have either in a story or in poetry the same sound beginning words, that is called alliteration. Particularly, they need to be consonant sounds, so not vowels. She sells seashells by the seashore. It doesn't have to be the same letter. If you look down at the last example here, this one is kitchen, crab cakes cooked. It's all the same sound, even if not the same letter, and that is okay. The next one you're going to be looking for is a simile, and this is a figurative comparison of two unlike things using like or as. So as one example, I would have given anything for the power to soothe her frail soul, tormenting itself in its invincible ignorance, like a small bird beating about the cruel wires of a cage. So first, I want to point out that invincible ignorance isn't alliteration. It's called assonance, and that's basically alliteration, but when it starts with a vowel sound. And the simile here is comparing a small bird beating against a cage, right? That's probably too small, to Lord Jim's ability to soothe this lady's soul, or his ability to make her feel better. So he really wants to, he's trying his best, but he just can't, just like a bird that's desperate to get free of its cage. Another example would be impressions poured in upon her of those two men, and to follow her thought was like following a voice which speaks too quickly to be taken down by one's pencil. The comparison here is how quick and confused her thoughts are, and then a voice that is speaking so quickly you can't write down what's being said. Okay, so these are two different scenarios being compared because both of them are, again, disjointed, too fast to really understand. And these are more complex examples of simile. I know that in the past when we learn about it, we think of things like he was as busy as a bee. Clearly, that's comparing a human that's busy to a bee that seems to be working all the time. But you can definitely get these more complex comparisons too. Next up is situational irony. So this is when you have a situation where the actions have an effect that's opposite from what's intended. So the outcome is the opposite of what's expected. So for one example, a fire station burning down. This is ironic because you would think that a fire station would have a sprinkler system and people who are keenly aware of different fire hazards, right? Or a marriage counselor filing for divorce, because their whole job is to keep those relationships together, but they can't keep their own together. Or a post on Instagram where somebody is just complaining about how terrible Instagram is. That would be the opposite of what's expected because you're complaining about it and yet you are also using it. So this is, again, when the opposite of what's expected is what happens. The next one is personification. And this is when we give human attributes to non-human animals or objects. So for example, the shadow of the moon danced on the lake. Shadows don't dance. This implies intention, like they're doing something on purpose. But we know that this is creating imagery of how shadows are moving on a lake that probably has ripples. There was a heavy thunderstorm. The wind snorted outside, rattling my window panes. Wind doesn't snort. That implies that they have lungs and a nose and a sense of humor, I guess. The flowers were blooming and the bees kissed them every now and then. as far as I know, bees don't have lips. And even if they do, kissing is a human action, right? So anytime there are human intentions, human actions, any of that given to animals or objects, that's personification. You can't personify a person. If you are giving a person human qualities, that's not personification. They're already people. All right, hyperbole, not pronounced hyperbole. Hyperbole is an exaggerated statement or a claim that's not meant to be taken literally. So it's a huge exaggeration that probably can't literally be true. For example, I think this is the most extraordinary collection of human talent, of human knowledge that has ever been gathered at the White House, with the possible exception of when Thomas Jefferson dined alone. So this was JFK talking about, how talented this gathering of Nobel Prize winners was. And this statement is implying that Thomas Jefferson was or had more talent and more knowledge than all of these Nobel Prize winners put together. I think it's pretty safe to say that that would not be literally accurate, right? But he's going overboard as a compliment to Thomas Jefferson. Or that year, 1967, the Dallas Cowboys had 137 rookies in training camp. Gil Brandt was signing everybody that could walk. Okay, well, you're not literally signing everybody that can walk because that would be really stupid and you'd lose your job. But this is an exaggeration that's emphasizing how low the standards were for being signed to the team that year. Next, we have symbolism. And so this is the use of symbols to signify ideas and qualities. And this can take different forms, right? So it can be an object that has a symbolic meaning. For example, the dove is a symbol of peace. A red rose, or the color red, stands for love and romance, etc. But it is important to note that symbolism is cultural. White in Western culture is associated with like purity or innocence, and that's why most times you see white wedding dresses, for example. But in a lot of Eastern cultures, white is actually associated with death. So it would be really inappropriate to get married in the color white, and they would get married in the color red instead. So just be aware that symbolism that is common in our cultures or country is not necessarily true globally, okay? You can also see this in stories if you have like an object or a color or a concept that keeps appearing over and over again, and it starts to symbolize something more. So these are the devices that you're going to be looking for in the Telltale Heart, and you can either get started on that now or you can wait until tomorrow. That is up to you.